in the late 18th century, before the Industrial Revolution, on the eve of the Industrial Revolution, all thread had to be hand spun, which means that somebody had to sit there and draw out fiber, twist it, and extend it to make it long and strong, and pick it up and make bobbins full of thread. And then that thread would be woven into cloth. And it takes a lot of thread to make anything. So, for example, the cloth in a pair of blue jeans is roughly 6 miles of thread. And before the Industrial Revolution, before mechanized spinning, the fastest, best spinners in the world were Indian women spinners, especially with cotton. And it would take about 100 hours to spin the amount of thread that was needed to make a pair of blue jeans, a pair of trousers in those days. So 100 hours for one pair of pants. That's a lot of time. And the result of that is even at its highest, most productive version, it's a very low productivity activity. Spinners are paid very little not because people are mean, but because it takes so long to make anything that if they were paid more, nobody could afford any cloth. So you also have a phenomenon where in the late 18th century, it's taking 20 or 30 spinners for every weaver in the north of England. There's a guy who went around and recorded this sort of thing. And even with basically every woman was spinning, even with all that spinning, the weavers sometimes didn't have enough thread. They didn't have the input. So that was the bottleneck in the production of cloth. And everybody knew it would be great to automate it. And through various stages, it does. In the late 18th century, you do eventually get spinning machines, water-powered, and then later coal-powered spinning machines, so that one person can operate lots and lots of spindles, and suddenly thread is abundant, which is so that's the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. First of all, it starts with these spinning machines, huge jump in productivity. And for roughly a generation, about 25 years, weavers enjoy what one historian calls a golden heyday, because now they're no longer sitting around waiting to have enough thread. They've got all the thread they need, but they're still doing it the old, slow way, mechanical. And so they're getting high. They've got their thing. They're getting all the work they need. They're doing very well for about a generation, and then looms get mechanized. So the same process that happened with spinning happens with weaving, and the Luddites are the rebels against that. Now, there were people when the spinning machines were introduced. There were also people. They don't have a name, but there were people who protested those, who broke them up, who petitioned Parliament, who rioted. I mean, there's a certain amount of that stuff against the spinning machines again. But basically, the Luddites are people who were the winners of technological progress for basically a generation, and then were the losers. And it was a big deal. I mean, it was a big deal for them, because if you were losing your livelihood, and this is roughly the turn of the roughly 1800 or so, you could starve. I mean, it was serious business. It wasn't like getting laid off from a tech company in 21st century America. But that was what it was about. It was about this idea that increasing productivity means losing jobs, and therefore it's bad. And that is very much the same argument that we see today. And yet, increasing productivity is the only way you get out of poverty. You don't get out of poverty by having everybody spin, or everybody do hand weaving.